Hello everybody, this is Ghost Hunter 385 and I am back with more StarCraft 2 and more commentary for everybody. So let's see what Tychus has got to say here, folks. Oh well, what can you do, Tychus? It's not like you're the big lovable rogue that everybody has. I mean, come on, think about it, dude. For a minute, dude.
Level 800.
Level 800 torch. Oh, that's a nice little Warcraft reference right there. Let's see. What are their greatest hits? Rogues do it from behind, tearing up the night. Another Hydralist bites the dust. Saturday night, another for nuking. Lucy in the sky. Wow. It's all parodies of famous songs. I gotta admit, that's actually kind of amusing when you think about it. It reminds me of Weird Al Yankovic when I think about it. When you think of parody songs, I think of Weird Al Yankovic when it comes down to it. Oh, now Jim is doing the smart thing. He's talking to Tychus, not Tychus, Gabriel Tosh, about the visions that Zeratul gave him.
The one that made them for sure.
Yee. Dark Harbingers, man.
Dark Harbingers, man.
Although I must say, that would be a terrifying thought. The adaption ability of the Zerg combined with the strengths of the Protoss. That is a bit of a scary process when you think about it. Okay, let's go to the bridge. Horner. Even Matt's curious, that's nice. Temple, library, kind of both. Well, an archive is actually more akin to a place where knowledge is stored, kind of like a library, except it's more preference on preserving the knowledge instead of going through said knowledge, I guess would be the proper way to put that. But yeah, either way, it's kind of the same thing. To the armory, let's not go to say.
What's up, cowboy? I know you're looking kind of rough. Rougher than usual, I mean.
Oh.
Got a lot going on.
Really, Jim? You can't be nice about it.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, seriously. Come on, be nice to him.
Get some shut-eye once in a
Oh,
while.
here's a classic one. Thanks, Mom. I'll get right on it. That's funny. Oh, is there nothing on the armory console? Oh, well, let's check out what's on the research.
I think you're losing yourself in that crystal.
He's not losing himself in the crystal. It's not like he's Eminem and losing himself. Here, folks. What's this? Let's see. The Zerg sample has developed a large neocortex. I've noticed reacting to external stimuli but in a disturbing way. Playing dead. Ooh, that's scary when you think about it. I mean, when you think about that. Oh, what's this? The cellular reactor. Well, not reactor, yeah. Or regenerative biosteel. It's actually interesting when you think about it. But I actually get the regenerative biosteel. The reason for that is fairly simple. In terms of my play strategy, I rely less on the specialist units. And I rely more on the actual damage. Because specialist units are nice. But the fundamental problem with the specialist units in this game is that with the energy that the specialist units use are nice. But it's not like you have a ton of them. Now some might sit there and say, no you don't, you get more. Okay, really? Aside from the units that cloak, like the Wraith that I'll get later on, and the Banshees, from there, it's either, depending on which route you go, it's either the Ghost or the Spectre, and then it comes down to the Thor units. Beyond that, very little in the way of the energy units. I mean, if I got the Raven and the Science, the Science Vessel, And I think there's one other unit that has a unique energy function. I would actually be more inclined to get it. But guess what? You don't. You don't get it at all. All you get between the Raven and the Science Vessel, and then depending on your play style, that dictates which one you pick. And then from there, depending on whether you pick the Ghost or the Spectre, that's it. Then you have the Wraith and the Banshee and the Thor units. That's it for energy-wise. Truth be told, if there was a higher value in having the specialist units, I'd use them in a heartbeat. But the sad part is, there isn't that much to it. And let's get into today's subject. And today's subject is going to be police... What's the word I'm looking for here? Police misconduct is another topic in and of itself. What's the best way to phrase this? I guess the best way to phrase this would be the police failures. And I'm guessing the best way to phrase this wouldn't be it's the police failures or cases that the police have failed would be the best way to phrase this. Now, some people might sit here and say, what do you mean cases where the police have failed? Well, I'm going to give you guys some examples and you can make up your own mind about that. But let's start off with a case that was extremely controversial, and it was declared the trial of the century. Now, what case am I talking about here? I'm talking about the trial of O.J. Simpson. Now, some people might sit here and say, the trial of O.J. Simpson, he did it. Okay, if he, quote-unquote, did it, how come they didn't convict? Because he had a really good attorney, and that attorney destroyed and ripped through all the evidence. And then the biggest statement in the trial, if the glove does not fit, you must acquit. And lo and behold, the glove did not fit. Now, people will sit there and say that, from there, what else did he say? He also said that the police were corrupt, and that OJ they were racist, and that this whole grand scheme of things was nothing more than to bring a black man down. Well, my personal thoughts I'll keep to myself, because if I were to sit here and say what I really think, people would say conspiracy idea. I don't believe in the whole concept of the use of conspiracy theorist here, folks. The reason why I say that is because conspiracy theory means that, well, no, sorry, I messed up on that. Let me reiterate this. Conspiracy theory used to believe for the whole whack job thing. I run off of theories, not conspiracy theory. Now, people might sit there and say, oh, okay, it's a conspiracy that this happened. I don't know. But it's a theory. Now, people might sit here and say, well, what is your theory? Well, to be blunt here, my theory is that I think Nicole Brown Simpson was into things that she shouldn't have been after she left OJ, and it ultimately cost her her life. How can you say that when there was the blood evidence and everything? Well, the fundamental problem with the blood evidence is that back when the OJ trial happened, yes, technology has improved, but the fundamental problem was that back then there was no genetic marking tests. Now, some people might sit there and say, that's not true. I've watched enough of police investigation style TV shows on channels like HLN and True TV, or back when it was Court TV,
You address me?
that in the 90s and the late 80s, guess what? They didn't have...
The first
What's going on here?
overmind tendril.
Oh, first overmind tendril. Okay. They did not have what we have today, where they can
Surprise.
not only can they blood type, but they can also test for specific genetic markers. They didn't have it back then. What they did have was blood typing. That's it. Blood type tests to determine if the victim had the same, or the perpetrator had the same blood type. So guess what that means, everybody? That means that the evidence that they said was OJ's blood meant that it was the same blood type as OJ. If you look up what the most common blood type among African American men is, guess what? It's O negative. So somebody at that scene had O negative blood. Now some people might say, well, that doesn't really mean much. Okay, let me rephrase this. The most common blood type among African American men is O negative. Guess how many other people on the planet have O negative blood? Just as an example, my grandmother, my last surviving blood grandparent here, is O negative. So that means, by the logic of this case, to a degree here, I'm not saying completely to this case, is that my grandmother has the same blood type as the person who killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. That's just one piece. That's just one piece of the pie here, folks. Then from there, we jump into what else is there? There's the footprints that only shows one person coming and going. And, from here, this is where I will say that, this is where the prosecution messed up, where they could have used OJ's money against him. OJ hired Dr. Henry Lee, or at least OJ's defense team hired Dr. Henry Lee. Now, who is Dr. Henry Lee? Dr. Henry Lee is one of the most world-renowned, forensic pathologists, or something along those lines. He's one of the most famous doctors who does forensic science. Now, people will sit there and say that, oh, I've heard of him. Didn't he have a TV show? Yeah, he did have a TV show. They stopped showing it, but Dr. Henry Lee is one of the top paid people in forensic techniques and forensic information. Now, some people might sit there and say, oh, that means OJ paid him. Yeah, OJ paid him to come check out the case. So, because Dr. Henry Lee was paid by the defense, that just means he was doing his job. He went to find something that excluded OJ. Now, I will say that it is true OJ paid them, but considering Dr. Henry Lee's reputation, and if they had let him do whatever he was going to do to the crime scene to see if he could find any more evidence, they missed out. Oh, what do you mean they missed out? It's quite simple. Dr. Henry Lee is one of the biggest names in forensic science. So, one of the biggest names of forensic science. How do I use his findings to prove my case? It's not hard to figure this out. But apparently it is hard for these people to sit there and say, we've just been handed a golden goose. Why don't we use it? But from there, then, I don't particularly like how the defense claimed racism, and I don't really like how they claimed racism, but you never know, it could have been part of it. But from there, the other thing is that the LA Crime Lab, the LA Crime Lab, where they would have done all the blood testing and some of the more forensic lab work where it needed to be done, guess what? That lab, according to other people, has a rather what's the word I'm looking for here? Shoddy reputation, I believe, is the word I'm going for here. When it comes to not having cross contamination of samples in lab, and if that's the case, and there's been big problems with state-run DNA labs, not just in California, there's been other states that have those problems where they actually have to outsource to private labs to do the work here, folks. I'm not just picking on LA here. I'm saying that other labs have had these issues. And that's not trying to be crude here, not trying to be rough. I'm just saying that this has been a problem.
The scales will be balanced.
Now, we go through all the evidence and we find that, well, on the grand scheme of things, their case isn't as strong as it appears. Now, yes, you have the bloody glove and everything, but when OJ went to put on that glove, it shrunk. Well, anyone who's had to work with leather or even the fake leather stuff knows that leather, whether it be, especially if it's real leather, that stuff doesn't shrink like the way a pair of cotton or what other nylon clothes shrink. Like if you were to throw them in a dryer or something and you cause those fibers to tighten up and then loosen, tighten up and loosen kind of thing. Leather, to my knowledge, does not work like that. Leather doesn't shrink, because what causes shrinkage? Cold and moisture, because it causes the fibers of the glove, if you will here, to contract and come together. So from there, in my opinion, the police jumped the gun way too hard for OJ. Now, people might sit here and say, you're defending OJ. No, I'm taking a look at the evidence that these people provide, not the people that I guess you could say that the people of California provided to the courts and said, this is our proof. Well, let's review. You have footprints of someone coming and going of maybe the right shoe size for OJ. You have the blood type belonging to OJ Simpson at the crime scene. Doesn't necessarily mean it's his. So you have possibilities. And then there's the whole sock with the blood on it, and then there's the blood in the Bronco. Well, if OJ did it by himself, how is it that there's this huge mixture of blood on one side of the Bronco that they found, yet it was on the passenger side, and OJ did it by himself? Why would it not be on the driver's side? Especially if OJ had been by himself. And, I don't particularly agree with how the defense said it was racism. I think that the defense had a better argument that there was not enough proof to say that OJ did do this, in my opinion. But, this is me looking back and picking at the case. Like, why are these so many holes in this case? It doesn't make sense. But before I switch cases here, the last thing I'm going to point out here, now keep this in mind, is that people will view this as character assassination. And I'm not trying to assassinate anyone's character. But the last thing I'm going to bring up here is, what was Nicole doing after she left OJ? Because according to a lot of people, Nicole left OJ to find herself, because she married OJ at 19? When she went from mistress to wife? You feel me, folks? Now, some people might sit here and say, I'm assassinating Nicole's character. I'm not assassinating Nicole's character. I'm bringing up the fact that their relationship started out as she was OJ's mistress. She knew OJ was a womanizer. She may not have known that OJ had a temper, mind you. But still, Nicole started her relationship with OJ as his mistress. He divorced his first wife, remarried Nicole, started a family with her. People might sit here and say, oh, that's a load of hogwash. Well, go back and look at the case. And especially more, not necessarily the case, but how Nicole and OJ's relationship started. How did it start? It started that she was his mistress. And, from there, people will sit there and go, bruh, that, this is just a big nothing burger. Okay, treat it that way. Okay, so let's talk about the Duke Lacrosse case now. Oh, this case again? Yeah, let's bring this case up because this one is actually a lot more inflammatory and should piss more people off. What? Why? Because those guys were falsely accused. They deserved it. They were at a party and they were racist towards a black woman. Okay, we get it. They were racist, but does ruining their lives forever need to be that slammed on them? Well, if the glove fits, it's their karma. So their karma is getting their lives destroyed here. You're saying that it's okay that their lives got destroyed because of what happened. And you want to know what the worst part of this case was? The district attorney, Mike Naipong, he had enough evidence to sit here and say that, well, this is all just a big load of nothing. That it was nothing. That, this was just a fight between a bunch of college-age students who ended up referring to a black woman as a racial slur. And that, they deserved this. Okay, so let me get this straight. If a black man walks up the street, looks at a white woman and says, look at that honky ass, whatever, proper garden tool, whatever, does he deserve to be thrown in jail, prison, and have his life ruined as smeared across the internet as forever a rapist? People would say, you would have the NAACP running to this case as fast as they could, saying, hold up, you racist beepers, not gonna happen, not on our watch. Okay, really? And why did the district attorney do this to these kids? Is it because he had a problem with their families? Nope. It was because it was an election year and he wanted to look good to the people. So what did he do? He basically destroyed the lives of three lacrosse players who were what? Maybe no older than 21 at most. He destroyed their lives, made it so that whenever an employer would do a background check or even the most cursory of Google searches, guess what they find? Rapist. And what happened? Did any of these college students, did they ever get their lives back? They were expelled from the Duke University. Did they get back in? No. And as far as I know, their lives have not recovered from what happened. Is that fair? That under the umbrella of believe all victims, that 3 innocent people's lives were destroyed? If you honestly think that they deserved it, you might want to go talk to a person about your, okay, what is the word I'm looking for here? Oh yeah, your own prejudice. I mean, think about that one for a minute, people. Mike Naipong destroyed these 3 students' lives, all because of what? All because he wanted to stay elected. That's it. No more, no greater. That's all he wanted. He wanted to keep himself elected. He wanted to keep his job. That's all this was. And when you think about it, that's pretty dang disgusting and low life of him. Here, I'm just gonna sacrifice these three college kids. Who cares? If they were black college kids, oh, nowadays the media would be in an uproar. What's the difference here? No difference. That's the problem. Then from there, we'll talk about the case of Ray, what was it, Tyler Ray Crone, the man who was dubbed the Snaggletooth Killer because he didn't get any braces or have any cosmetic work done on his teeth, and he supposedly killed a woman. What was she? A bartender at a bar he frequented. And they came in one day and found her dead, and they called him the Snaggletooth Killer. And how did they convict him? They convicted him on the fact that his teeth impression was a dead match. When after it came out that he didn't do it, that they could only argue that it was similar, because saying that it was an exact match wasn't exactly a lie, but it was an unintended consequence of the trial. So from there, he spends I believe it was 8 years on death row, or was it 10? And he gets released almost 20 years. No, I don't think it was 20. Let me try and remember this. Was that he was released 10 years after the fact, and he spent 8 of those years or so on death row for a crime he didn't commit. You know, how many innocent people, whether they be man or woman, have died on death row for a crime they did not commit? You know, I'm not trying to sit here and say that, F the police here, but I'm saying that these people need to do a bit more. What am I thinking about here? Ooh, look at that, Chigurus. Need to do a bit more in the department of critical thinking, because guess what? Yeah, that people aren't gonna always be guilty of every crime that their name is splattered against on the news here, folks. But in any case, everybody, this was a bit of an example here of everything. But in any case, thank you for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, bang that bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.